right, everybody, welcome to Touching Greatness. And it doesn't get any greater than this, folks. You know, I've always been a very, very proud Marxist. And today I'm going to prove it big time because we have Bill Marx, the son of Harpo, pianist, composer, arranger, and still a wishful future Hall of Fame ball player at 87 years old. Bill, how are you?
Still am. And
It's
I'm
great to
very
see you.
fortunate.
Yes, you know that's a word that you have used a few times, and I want you to discuss how fortunate you are just to have the last name Marx. I think that is just a spectacular thing. Your
Well,
story.
if you're talking an American, that's fine. If you're talking Russian, it's another story.
Yes. Well, you earned it by being adopted around the age of 1 by Susan and Harpo Marx, and they could have chosen anyone, and you were right there saying, "No, no, no, please let it be me."
Fine. I was. And I had the quarter. I gave them the quarter.
Okay.
And and I did not adopt them because they had any money. They actually adopted me.
Yes, exactly. And just to be able to be in a special family like that your whole life and in the spotlight in a different kind of way, but the last name Marx puts you in a different stratosphere. Discuss that.
Well, it's the one that I recall the most. I've had just about all my life
Yes.
is Marx, and it's been an honor. Let's just put it that way. I didn't realize how important these guys were, the brothers, until I maybe was 10, 11 years old. Actually, I went with my dad. I was a vaudevillian with my
Right.
dad. We played the British music hall circuit, and my dad made me a part of the act. And what was the most important thing is I didn't realize it, but I had no idea how important a person he really was. He wasn't Harpo. He wasn't Arthur. He was Dad.
Right.
How I knew him. But when I saw those people react to him and Chico, I realized, hey, I'm in the stratosphere of human beings here.
Well, we're paying tribute to your father. It's the 60th anniversary of his passing this year, right? It's hard to believe 60 years have gone by, and he happened to die on the same day as your parents' wedding anniversary, which was the 28th at the time. Um, it, it must have been for several years. I mean, I dealt with the same thing. Many people out there watching this, you know, when you lose your father, it's it's not just traumatic, but it changes sometimes how you look at life. And I'm just wondering from that day on, uh, how it changed you. That not to have your father around, but you had to continue with the Marx name and make him proud.
Well, I always wanted him to feel like he had made the right choice when he adopted me. Uh, I've learned in my rather sordid life that the most difficult thing to deal with is loss. Whether you can't find your keys to the car or whether you lost somebody, you have to change everything. And because there's a piece of you that has been taken away.
Right.
And so, but we all have to do it, and we all get it done, and we all get it done in our own way.
Yes, absolutely. It's also the 100th anniversary of the Marx Brothers' first Broadway show. I'll say she is 100 years ago. It was 1924. I'm just totally wondering, how do you think your dad and his brothers would be if they were around right now thinking, okay, it's been 100 years since then, and yet we are as popular as ever. And how many decades it took them just to get there. I mean, it's really incredible when you think about it.
Well, they had the luxury, if it were to
Yes.
be used that in that connotation, of developing your act. Long before we ever saw them in movies, they had been on Broadway for 5 years, and before that, they had been in vaudeville for 20 years. So
Yep.
they weren't really actors, they were human beings expanding their personalities. And it took them a long time to learn exactly how to be in an act. And George Burns, I think, said it very, very well. And he was one of my dad's closest friends. He said, you know, what with television and everything going on, there's no place to be lousy anymore.
That's
There's,
true. To learn your craft, right?
yeah, in order to learn it, you could, because you go on television with some material, and the minute that you go off television, that material is no longer, you need something else. They developed characters, and
Yes.
they're more on the characterizations than they did really in the written word.
Very, very interesting.
The punchlines. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so a little bit about your mother. Okay, Susan. She had her own book as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But what was your mom like around the house? Because everything I saw, it was all about dad and mom laughing all the time, and your father making her laugh.
Well, first, they did not laugh all the time. Oh, that's wonderful.
Isn't that a great shot?
Thank you. Yes, that was taken at a place called Tamarisk Country Club.
Yes.
Dad was one of the 4 or 5 founders of that golf club down here in Palm Springs, and it became Rancho Mirage,
Right.
and that was taken in the bar area, and I just love that picture. And mom at that time was about 55 years old, and I thought she just looked wonderful. She
Yes.
and I thought dad looked better than I've ever seen him.
Yeah, look at how slim he is there. Of course, a lot of that is playing that grueling game of croquet. Right?
He's in the Croquet Hall of Fame.
Is that true?
That is very
I
true.
did not know that. That is great. Now, so he was a damn good player then, right?
Well, he was serious about the game, and that's how he transcended into golf. Those were the two
Oh, okay.
sports that he really cared about. And when he played golf, he played to a 12 to 14 handicap without being able to hit a drive 185 yards.
Right.
However, as we all know, and I know you know, that the short game is where you score, and he was deadly around the greens. He was just his approach shots were fabulous. He was a student of golf. He was a student of croquet.
Wow, that's fantastic. And let's take a look at that swing of his, by the way. Look at that follow through. Is
Yeah.
that beautiful? Is that at Tamarisk?
No, I
When he
don't.
did this with Sam Snead, the TV celebrity golf show.
That's right, and that was at the Desert Inn in Las Vegas.
Oh, Las Vegas. That's right. Okay. That's
With
right.
show, and this is probably back east at Wolcott's place. Uh,
Okay.
they had a croquet course there built. Uh, it was a place where you could actually take out your animosities to your. It could be a brutal game, it's wonderful. That's a great picture
Yeah,
of.
I love it too. And mention it quickly about that name Wolcott for people who don't or are not aware, and it just happens to be your middle name.
Alexander Woollcott in the 20s was the most highly respected of all entertainment critics in New York. And he would go to all the shows and write articles and so forth. And then one night he went to see a couple of acrobats. Turns out they were not acrobats; they were the Marx Brothers, and
Wow.
he fell in love with Dad, and he introduced ultimately Dad into the literary intelligentsia that peopled the round table at the Algonquin Hotel, and he became a fixture there. Though never having written a book, he was welcomed largely because he was one of the few that sat at the table and actually listened to people. All the other great minds that were there, FPA and Robert Benchley and all of these people, they were trying to outwit one another constantly. And of course, Woollcott was at the head of the table, and next to him was Dorothy Parker, and next to her, I mean, it just goes on for
Right.
those in that time frame of 10 years. And so he was a major fixture there. And the Algonquin is still there, and they had a thing called Marx Fest just a couple of months ago, which revolved around the Algonquin Hotel and the round table, and they had people from all over the world coming to New York and visiting and being a participant for 3 days at the Marx Fest.
That's
And
great. How many times have you entered the Marx Fest?
I've never entered the Marx Fest.
Really? I'm surprised.
Well, at my age, I'm lucky to enter the bathroom in time.
I got you. I got you. But it's been going on for a while, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, there are several people in New York that are responsible for it. It's wonderful.
Okay.
There's Noah Diamond and Kathy Beale and Seth Sheldon. Those people have been putting that together. I think this is the first time that they had it for 3 full days, a
Oh,
weekend.
okay. Got it.
In fact, the gentleman who wrote a wonderful book chronicling the Marx Brothers on stage. The book is called Four of the Three Musketeers, and it's out, and it's a wonderful. It's quite an epic volume, and his name is Robert Bader, and he went there to New York to. To chat, they had these various. Let's all get together and have special interviews. He was there in my stead, and he's just taken all of the information from my mother's autobiography, which she hated it, and she put it in a drawer somewhere, and he took it out,
Really?
made a wonderful book out of it. It's coming out in October. It's called Speaking of Harpo. Um, I can
So, but that is different. You're saying than your mother's book?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. I know. Four of the Three Musketeers is about the Marx Brothers stage
Oh,
experiment.
got it. Got it. But she didn't like speaking of Harpo.
She loved, or no, she didn't like her. It's her autobiography. She was very self-effacing, and
Right.
she would put everything away. She was a wonderful painter, and but she would paint something and then put it in the closet and forget about it.
Oh, really? Okay.
This Dad's book, of course, was Harpo Speaks, which
Right.
and this is my book, son of Harpo Speaks.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love the copy. I've got a picture of all your books here in a second. I will find it. I got so many pictures to share.
There I am. I don't know how to do anything anymore. That's my sister, Minnie. Oh, no, no, no. That's me. That's
That's
right.
you. That's
Share,
totally you.
we share something together. Minnie's in our life.
That's correct. We both have grandma minis, and unfortunately, you never met yours. What did your dad talk about his mom?
Oh, it was a love affair. Uh, he he was a very, very family oriented kind of guy.
Right.
And she dealt with him on a very long leash, which he took advantage of, but not of her. They had a wonderful relationship, as he did with his father, Frenchie, Sam Marx. Yeah,
That's nice. But the importance of Minnie Marx in the entire story of the Marx Brothers, I mean, it doesn't happen without her. Not talking about the births. I'm talking about what she did to get this whole thing started, right?
she did not want her children uh, to do anything in life except get out of the ghetto.
Right.
And she found out that as time would tell, her brother Al Sheehan became a very famous vaudevillian of Gallagher and Sheehan.
Yep.
And she said, "Okay, you're all going into vaudeville in order to make some money," and they all did. And the rest is 100-year-old history right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm very proud to share the name Minnie, and I know you had a special sister as well named Minnie. I wonder where she got her name from.
I have no. I think from your aunt, right?
Or my grandmother.
Yeah.
I know. So, and growing up, the Marxes had four adopted kids. So, I don't know the reason, and maybe it's not important that they didn't want to have their own kids. But man, did that work out great for you guys, huh?
It was a wonderful stroke of genius. The fact is that my dad was 20 years older than my mother at the time they got married, and my mother was already 28. My dad was a confirmed bachelor until she finally nailed him, and then George and Gracie Allen decided one day to call my mother and say, now that you're married, you got him where you want him, you really ought to have a family. And so they wound up adopting little Billy right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on this set of Go West.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, Go West, was that Marilyn Monroe's?
I'm sorry?
Was that Marilyn Monroe in Go West? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Marilyn Monroe had what is probably the greatest walk-on uh, part anyone could have, and that was in Love Happy.
Love Happy. I'm sorry. That's correct. Yes.
Sure.
And were you there for that too?
Yeah. I was there for that, and that was the same time. I was almost 12 at that time, and we had dinner. There was another movie being shot at Eagle Lion at the same time Love Happy was being shot, and, and we all stopped for dinner, and we all went and we sat at this long table, and a lady sat down next to me, and I really realized for the first time that there was such a thing as a girl or a lady, because
Really?
she was Ava Gardner.
Wow.
and she was 21 years old, and I was devastated by her gorgeous looks. And she was doing One Touch of Venus. They were making that movie at the other part of the lot there.
Well, you were devastated about Ava Gardner before Frank Sinatra was.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Poor Harry James, and I believe there was Artie Shaw, I believe. Yeah, Artie, what a character he was.
Yeah, really. So, how amazing was Bill Marx's childhood at the age of 12 to get to be your dad's right hand kid? Not man yet.
I became a part of the act, and we,
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah, and
Okay.
well, he took me to England where we did the well, actually Europe, where we did the British vaudeville circuit, and this was 1949, and I became a part of the act, and I got my own laughs, and he dressed me up as an angel, and I would carry his harp out for him, and with a sign on my back saying "Eat it, Olivelli's," and little
I love it.
and you plastered underneath it. And I didn't realize until then how really internationally important these guys were to people. And he was just dad as far as I was concerned.
Of course.
And this picture that you have up here, it's inverted in the sense that you play the harp the other way. Uh, I don't know. I guess he just took the picture, but the harp is supposed to be on the right shoulder, not the
Right.
left.
Right. It's funny because this is the only picture I think I've seen that way. So we're going to get rid of that one. I totally get it. How heavy is a harp, by the way, to have to carry around for your dad?
Let alone in a harp trunk, which
Wow.
is designed specifically to put a harp in.
That's
With
not a carry on luggage.
no, it's carry on with a broken back luggage. I mean, it was, we transported it properly, but I only had to take it on and off stage, and basically that was it in terms of heavy lifting.
Right. Where was this picture taken at? Do you recall?
Yes, that's a picture of who is that guy on the right? I don't know, but that on the left, and it was taken at a place called El Rancho Harpo, which is a home he built at Tamarisk Country Club, and where he could play his golf and harp and play and just enjoy life as it meandered throughout the years. The last 8 or 9 years of his life was spent there, and we took that out in the back. I think that was one of the photos that was in a photo shoot for one of my albums that I did. I did several jazz albums for VJ Records, and I think that was one picture out of the shoot. And I also did an album called My Son the Folk Swinger, which
Yeah.
was all the songs that Alan Sherman did, and My Son the Folk Singer. And Alan was a terrific friend of mine, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. I would go down and visit Dad because I was working up in LA at that time that this was taken. I was already in the industry doing various goofy albums and stuff that I had to do to stay alive. And this is, I love his, forgive me, I love his countenance on this particular picture. He looked so lovingly. He was as lovable a human being as I've ever known in my life.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. And I mean, it's hard to believe this guy was the most lovable person of all time. But that shows you that's what Hollywood's about, right?
He had every expression known to humankind that was possible. It was a way of telling you what life is all about without having to tell you what life is all about.
Exactly. You know, it's funny. You hear about the great pantomimes of all time, and I think your dad should be right there at the top of the list. I mean, that's what he did for his entire career. And to get laughs, to just make faces and actions and all of the above is just so hard to do.
Yeah, it's it's a joyful experience being around that guy all of my life, and I didn't realize it because he was 50 years older than I was.
Yeah.
So I only got a chance to hang with him for 14 or 15 years before he passed on.
Right. So, how do you become a arranger and musical conductor at the age of 16 for your father, who is a brilliant musician? And is it true that he loved classical music the most?
Yeah, he loved classical, especially the French Impressionists, uh, Debussy, Fauré, Ravel, those guys.
I
He,
knew Ravelli. That was one of Chico's characters, I think.
that's a good. uh, yeah, he learned many, and incidentally learned them without knowing how to read a note of music. He had a wonderful ear, and people would teach him the songs, or I would teach him. And we did two albums together. At that time, there was a thing called record companies. They don't exist anymore, but this record company was Mercury Records, and we did two albums together. I did the arranging, and what was that you were just showing? It was
The one with the four with your the four siblings.
oh yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
a great shot. I love that picture.
Uh, Mom was not Jewish, and Dad was Jewish, and so the kids grew up any way they wanted and what we did though is celebrate Christmas. And the reason that we celebrated Christmas was because Dad liked the the lights. There were more different variety of lights on a Christmas tree than on a Hanukkah tree. So we celebrated the joy of Christmas every year, and that was us sitting underneath one of those Christmas trees.
Oh, that's awesome. So your dad had to have an incredible amount of trust to have his 16-year-old son be his arranger. I mean, I know he didn't read music. Was that just you did, he didn't, and it just meshed?
Well, he instilled something in me that I've never had. He instilled his confidence in my being able to do things. And when he asked me to do something, I would tell him I can't do that. I'd never done it, and and he says you can do it. You can do it. And it was the same with my mother. She would say, "Bill, you can do it." And so I went ahead and I did it so that I wouldn't embarrass them or shame them that I couldn't do it or whatever. And I went ahead and did it. And somehow or another, uh, because of their confidence in me rather than my own, I became fairly successful in my endeavors.
Nice. And the piano, you learned that on your own, or was this something like as a kid you always wanted to play? Because I took lessons when I was 6. I got really good for like 6 months, and then I said, "Sorry, I got to go play little league." So you stuck with it, and I didn't.
I have to tell you, I know what you were going through. the kids were out, your friends were out playing.
Exactly.
You had to go in and practice your scales. I started when I was 4, but I didn't like it. So at 5, I quit. At 6, I started again because my folks said, you really got talent, and I hated it. And at the age of 7, I quit again and went out and played ball with the guys. At the age of 8, I started again. And at the age of 9, my piano teacher quit. So that was the end of
Now,
that.
did the piano teacher quit because of you, or just wanted to quit anyway?
I don't know. Stand to what I was doing. I have no idea. I wound up subsequently studying and became more versatile musician as a composer and orchestrator than a pianist. I played jazz piano all my life, in smoky little dives. I would come home at night and take my coat off and hang it outside to get rid of the cigarette smell. And I did that for years also. When I wasn't scoring a motion picture, I would be playing a little trio gig somewhere in
That's
Los.
interesting.
Yeah.
Right. We got a comment from one of the viewers here. Jerry says she was friends with the now late Luigi Natacone. Did I say that correctly? Who played with your band? Does that sound familiar?
No, I'm ashamed for not
That's
remembering.
okay.
He did. Luigi? No. We had a maitre d' at Dino's Lodge. Luigi, he was legend on the Sunset Strip. But I don't know of a Luigi that I worked with. I know I worked with a couple of Ginos and a few more Italian drummers and bass players. Neapolitan was a guy, but I don't know a Luigi.
Okay. No problem. Did you start studying music after, I mean, before you went to Juilliard? Or, I mean, how much before that were you saying, okay, I'm ready for this? This might be a career.
I never thought of music as a career. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went into the Coast Guard when I got out of high school and served there, and then got out and decided I'm just going to sit and look at a wall until one day my mother said, okay, your dad's out of town. Here's a one-way ticket to New York. You're going to go there. I was 17 years old at the time. And she said, I want you to go there. Your dad wants you to get some street smarts. And I was terrified. All I had was a top coat and a typewriter and a suitcase. And I went to New York, and I went to work at Kimball's department store as a salesman in the toy department, cowboy suits, guns, holsters, and rifles. And then I decided, well, I'll try to get into Juilliard because I had written some things for Dad already for Mercury Records and stuff like that when we did some albums together.
Right. So, how much was this guy an influence in your piano playing? Chico, and I mean, he was very, very special. I do have some music I want to play. Unfortunately, we're having some technical issues, and Bill can't hear the music, but I'm going to play just a little bit of Chico on the piano, and then. He was very, very popular. It was, one of the best parts about watching Chico play was the faces of the kids around him in the movies. That you could just see. It's like I can't get enough of watching Chico play.
That warms my heart that you said that. You were actually paying attention. It is wonderful to watch the people watch Chico shoot the keys, what he used to do, and he was accomplished within a certain framework of the way he was able to do this style of playing, and, and I can tell you, children and adults alike were mesmerized by what this guy could do.
Yeah, and your dad played with him too. Now, how good of a piano player was Harpo Marx?
Yeah, the dad actually played piano, and there he is. And that was what they used to call the double piano solo or the single duet. And they did that. This particular thing. This is recorded on The Big Store. That was their movie that this was in. And it was an accumulation over the years of vaudeville and so forth, learning how to do this kind of a thing, working together. It was one of their vaudeville acts, and it came to life in The Big Store, which was the last movie they did for MGM.
Right. Were you there on the set at all for that one?
Not for that one, no, but
Okay.
love, yes.
Okay.
And
Do you remember any? Are there any like behind the scenes stories you remember from just being there?
uh, Ava Gardner blocked everything out.
I love it. Look at these guys.
There's there's a there's a nice shot.
Just another day in the Marx Brothers.
Yeah. Where are my scissors? Oh, there. You'll find them around Groucho's neck. Yeah, it's wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful.
I want to get more into the family's musical um, prowess, and just the fact that I know Groucho played guitar, and was he pretty good in your mind, or was it just goofing around?
Well, he was not a guitarist.
Right.
He he was a guy who played some guitar. He got around with enough chords, and he loved singing with the guitar accompaniment. So that's he also played the mandolin.
Oh, okay.
He taught his daughter Melinda how to play the mandolin, and she does that to this day. They live up in Mendocino now. But Groucho, was in endless love with music. He did the Gilbert and Sullivan stuff. He knew all of that. Uh,
Wow.
he was an aficionado of uh, so many different kinds of music. But basically, he just liked to strum the guitar or sometimes the ukulele.
And there is Groucho and Melinda right there, huh?
Hey, yeah, there she is.
That's great. One thing, whether Groucho was Frank Sinatra or not, he loved to sing.
Yeah, yeah. Grouch loved to sing. Groucho loved to be on.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
way, he could find a way to be on. That would be it for him. He needed an audience.
Yeah. How about when he had Bill Marx as his audience, and you got to play a little piano at his place in his later years? What was that like? Did it like flip the switch and he became 30 years old again?
Well, uh, he started to daughter along about 81 years old, but he had a live-in lady who recognized that if she could appeal to his ego, she could keep him going. You know, we all wake up in the morning and we're looking for purpose in our life. And the only purpose left for Groucho was to still entertain somehow. And so she would arrange these dinner parties, and she would invite people from the Hollywood industry, and they would come up for dinner. And then after dinner, they would go into the living room, and we would all sit around, 15, 20 people, and I would go to the piano, and I would play for Groucho, you know, Show Me a Rose, and Father's Day, and Omaha, Nebraska. And the people loved it, and it kept Groucho going for many, many years. Just knowing that, like she would say, you know, hey Grouch, we got a thing coming up in 3 days from now, so get yourself together for it. And he would then program himself for that. And there was some wonderful, wonderful evenings. I had a privilege of playing for a number of wonderful singers, including Mae West, people like that, and where you weren't allowed to come to dinner unless you got up and sang afterwards. It's little Tommy Tucker, sing for your supper, you know, that stuff.
That's great. Do you remember the last time you were able to hang out with your uncle Groucho?
No, I was just there for him whenever he needed me, and I would go over and I would play for him, and I'd have dinner with him, and I got to know him much better in his later years than I did before. You know, the brothers all dispersed to their own families after lunch. They all had lunch together at Hillcrest Country Club. I know you know about Hillcrest Country Club. And that's where they would convene, and then go home and have dinner with their families and do so. So we didn't see each other very often in that venue, but it was by that time, you know, don't forget. They were all 50 or 55 years older than I was. So it was a different world, a different time, and a time which I'll be forever grateful have been able to peek into and participate in.
You know, I can't help but think that famous round table get together at Hillcrest, what that would have been like if there were cell phones then. Could you imagine some of the videos coming out on that baby?
I have to tell you, one of my favorite pieces of artwork is The Last Supper. However, my closest friend, Norm, he was a great artist. He's still living today, but he painted The Last Supper, and everybody just exactly the way it was, but everybody had a cell phone and they were on the phone, or it's brilliant. So yeah, it's a very different world now.
Yeah, is there one or two stories though that you remember when you were sitting around at that round table? Because you said you were there more than several times, which actually is a little unusual because they didn't usually want teenagers hanging out of those kinds of things. And who was out? Who else was at the table when you were there?
Well, almost always the brothers, Milton Berle, George Burns, who was my dad's closest friend from vaudeville. Incidentally, there were no women allowed. It was just guys. And uh, um, what is it, Buddy Hackett, and then there was a lot of comedians would come in and sit in, and there was a couple of haberdashers that would show up, Cy DeVore and Carol and company, and they would be a part of the event. You had to have somebody laughing, and because it's not often when comedians laugh at comedians. There's a nice picture of the brothers. That's one of the very last ones. Chico does not look well, and he died not long after that. And there's a good picture of Gummo, which
Yeah.
the original fourth brother in the vaudeville act. He was a singer, but he didn't like show business, so he got out of it. But that's the five of them.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Gummo because there's there's a resemblance. I hope I can find this picture here of Gummo and my father, which we'll get to, I guess, in just a little second here. But who was your favorite amongst the oldest comedians? Like, if you showed up at the round table, was there anybody that's like, wow, I'm glad that he's here so I can get a few minutes with him? Or were you just sort of in the background the whole time?
I grew up when comedy was more a matter of personalities, not just punchlines. You had to have a personality, and I just thought that George Burns was the epitome of a great comedian, and who created Gracie's persona. Uh, you would not know what a funny guy he was. And also there was a guy who was he was revered by all comedians, a guy by the name of Georgie Jessel. And there's one story that I was there for, and he was late coming to then he shows up and tears are streaming down his face, and one of us got up and brought him to the table, and I told him not to go. I told him not to go. And you told him not to go? Yeah, I told him not to go. Who, Georgie, did you tell not to go? Custer.
Are
And
you
yeah,
anything for a laugh?
he would just wow you with certain things and then sit down and have a bowl of borscht.
That's so great. I love it. Okay, so here's the picture of my dad that I made with your Uncle Gummo. Could they be brothers?
They're not?
No, no, I'm not related to the Marx brothers.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty close, huh?
I do see the resemblance very much. I really
Exactly. That's Bernie Sobel and Gummo Marx.
do.
Never ever put in the same sentence together. And that's me with my dad on the bottom there. Just another older picture of my dad died at 55, so I lost him a lot sooner. But what I wanted to bring up was your uncle Zeppo, okay, who was a witness in 1967, I believe, late 67, to an FBI investigation at the Friars Club for fraudulent card playing, which was all done by a gentleman that Frank Sinatra allowed in the group to be a member there, and his name was Johnny Roselli. Do you remember? Did your uncle talk about that ever at all?
Yeah, he didn't talk about his relationships to the the inner circle of, if I may use the word correctly.
Yes,
It's Zepp got involved because he was a wonderful gambler. When I say wonderful, he was good at it.
right.
I don't know much about how good gambling really is, but he was a great gambler, and just like Chico, who was a lousy gambler but loved to gamble. Zepp got himself involved with the boys, and finally the brothers said, you gotta get out of that milieu, otherwise it's going to be a real tough going. Who's that? Oh,
That's
Rosselli.
that's Johnny Roselli, the criminal life of the mob's man in Hollywood, and he's the one that got put away for the Friars Club thing, and all because of that. Um, my father ended up the president of the card room at the Friars Club because they trusted him. This was like they had closed down the room for a few years. It's in my book, Touching Greatness, but it's a
I saw
fascinating story.
it, got it, and it's absolutely a wonderful book.
Thank you.
There it is. Touch of Greatness.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I appreciate you showing that.
Hey,
The bottom line is, though, that to think one of the Marx brothers had to be a witness to this, I mean, it's just part of a long story that is to be told another time.
the tentacles reach
Yes.
out everywhere in life with regard to, I'm sure, your father and, of course, my father as well. There's
Yep.
the color photo. Yeah, Chico looks like he's already had his funeral expenses paid for.
Yeah.
Uh,
It doesn't even look like him, does it?
no, he was very tired. And Gummo is on the right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about Uncle Chico and how was he fun to be around for you?
Yeah, he was a kind of the salt of the earth kind of fella. He got along with everybody, and uh, he he just loved uh, comedy, and he loved uh, gambling more than anything else. It didn't
Yes.
matter if he was a good or a bad one. It mattered not. It just that he had to have action, and that was the most important thing to him. I toured with him in the British vaudeville circuit, as I told you before, and uh, he was rather quiet in between shows and things. But his problem with gambling is uh, it didn't matter if he won or lost. It only mattered if he could play the game. And whereas Zeppo wanted to beat the crap out of you, Zeppo had a demanding streak in him that he's got to win. And
Right. Yeah. Like a competitive thing.
yeah, and he was an excellent gambler too. He was very successful, but more so than Zeppo. And incidentally, I had to do a shameless plug here for Robert Bader. His book on Zeppo is coming out in October. It is wonderful.
Right. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be great.
Maybe the most interesting of all the brothers put together, because he had the most uh, varied life in different ways. He was an inventor. He was a rancher. He was all kinds of things.
What did
And,
he invent? Anything specific we should most
well,
people would know?
for example, he invented. Now we're talking in 1941 or 42. He invented an airplane part that was mandatory on jet aircraft in World War II. He
Wow.
invented it in his garage. Also, he invented a watch that you put on your wrist, and it tells your blood pressure and your pulse. And he was the one that invented that, and
Wow.
he was quite an interesting man. And and well, I can the book is remarkable.
That's great. Well, I mentioned him briefly in my book, Touching Greatness, in my Friars Club chapter, and that's my dad's last Friars Club card in 1972, and that's when he passed away that year. Um, for again, he used to tell me. I said, "Oh, can you get me Zeppo Marx's autograph?" I was probably, I don't know, 16, 15 at the time, huge Marx Brothers fan. He goes, no. He goes, when Zeppo walks in the room to play cards, he's not there to give autographs. He's not the easiest guy in the world to play cards against. You need to know that. He would whine, and it's not like it was not a Marx Brothers movie when he was playing.
Yeah, he was a unique human being, and everybody that knew him closely felt that he was funnier than all the Marx Brothers. He would have to fill in with Groucho when Groucho got sick, in vaudeville, and nobody would know the difference. He was just a very funny, unique human being. And
And yeah, what was the best thing about him in his relationship with you? Like, how much did you hang out a little bit over the years at all?
no, the only thing I hung out doing with him is we shared a box seat for 8 people at a place called Gilmore Field, which
Yes.
I'm familiar with, home of the Hollywood stars. And he would sit with us, and I would sit there because we had these box seats, and we would watch as many Hollywood stars games as we possibly could. And there he was taking bets. And the pitcher is going to pitch a fastball now, or the pitch is going to be a ball, or is a foul ball, or he would bet on every pitch just about. He had to have the action just like Chico did.
Yeah, and what was your favorite team growing up? Was it the Dodgers, or were you into anything else?
Stars. They were a top minor league called the Pacific Coast League, and we saw a lot of guys going up and a lot of guys on their way down, and they had affiliations like with the Dodgers had affiliations with, excuse me, the Stars had affiliations with the Pirates, and the Angels, Los Angeles dreaded Angels, had affiliation with the Chicago Cubs, and we got to see a lot of ball players that wound up in the major leagues. And it was wonderful. Yeah, there's Dad in his Hollywood Stars outfit. Yeah.
Isn't that great? So you went to a lot of games then, huh?
Oh boy. Yeah.
That's
And
great.
I have to say that Zepp was there, ready with the peanuts, and ready to take on the customers. There's the old parade thing. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well,
Isn't that great?
color. Yeah. Yeah. Dad. Dad loved baseball, and my mom became a big baseball fan. She even learned how to keep score. Where you actually do the K's and the X's, and yeah, she became a wonderful scorekeeper. There are the four of them.
That's a great early picture, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's like a perfect portrait.
It's a wonderful portrait, and that's Zepp at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Chico on his right. There's
Playing ball again, right?
Yeah, they had a baseball team for a little while.
Oh, did they? This is back in New York, then, right?
Probably Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Okay.
Chicago for a while. I'm
All right.
with remembrances of times and dates and so forth. And that's Groucho and Dad. And I'll tell you where that is. In the world famous Brown Derby restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a popular place. I'm sure you were there at least a few times. I think, is that where was it the Cobb salad was originated? Is that correct?
The Cobb salad was originated by a fella who not only owned the Hollywood stars, Robert Cobb, but he also owned the Brown Derby. And he created the Cobb salad.
I love that. That's so great. There you are again. I'm looking for a picture here that is another a baseball related picture, which is one of my favorites ever regarding the Marx Brothers. And I'll look for that in just a second. Margaret Dumont, the importance of that woman in your family's history is unbelievable.
She was the perfect foil. Just wonderful.
Did you ever get a chance to meet her?
No,
Oh, that's too bad.
died before little Willie came into existence. Yeah.
Okay. But did any stories at all from your dad to ever bring her name up at all?
No, not really. It was a different time, a different place, a different world.
Right.
But she was brilliant. The only thing I can say about her is that she accused the Marx Brothers of ruining her career as an actress.
Yeah.
Because she became stereotyped,
She was in 7 movies though with the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
That's really something special. I'm going to play a little bit of Groucho and Margaret Dumont, and I know you can't hear it, but just let it go, and then we'll have a quick talk afterwards. All right?
Okay.
We've been expecting you. As chairwoman of the reception committee, I extend the good wishes of every man, woman, and child of Fredonia.
Never mind that stuff. Take a card.
Card? What'll I do with the card?
You can keep it. I've got 51 left. Now, what were you saying?
As chairwoman of the reception committee, I welcome you with open arms.
Is that so? How late do you stay open?
I've sponsored your appointment because I feel you are the most able statesman in all Fredonia.
Well, that covers a lot of ground. Say, you cover a lot of ground yourself. You better beat it. I hear they're going to tear you down and put up an office building where you're standing. You can leave in a taxi. If you can't get a taxi, you can leave in a huff. If that's too soon, you can leave in a minute and a huff. You know you haven't stopped talking since I came here? You must have been vaccinated with a phonograph needle.
Okay, you couldn't hear that, but Margaret Dumont had to be an unbelievable sport. And then there was so much talk about that she didn't even understand half the jokes. She just did her part. Right?
Not true.
Not true.
No, she was a trooper and she understood.
Okay, good. That's good to know. She was a professional trooper.
You bet.
That is so awesome. But I mean, could you almost not imagine anybody but her doing these parts? And she did it so many movies.
Yes, she did. She was a wonderful, matronly foil, and played the part of the upper crust of Pasadena, California.
Oh, okay.
Society's bride, so to speak.
I love it. I love it. Now, how much of a artist was your father in his last, let's just say, 25 years of his life? I mean, was he a really good quality artist?
He was a really good quality artist, and he's had a number of vernissages, so to speak, but he never painted anything except for his own particular pleasure or for charities.
Okay.
He would put his stuff, he would just take it to a friend of his and said, "What do you think of this? What do you think it's worth?" And the friend would say $500. And Dad said, "Okay, write out a check to your favorite charity for $3,500 and the painting is yours."
Wow.
And they did. And there's a number of them in hospitals all over the United States, and he donated a lot of stuff.
Do you have any of his originals on the wall still?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, I do. And I'm sorry I can't show them to you because although if when you're through with this, I can show you behind me just a kind of a portion of what he did. You see,
Okay. I see over your shoulder there.
that 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 is a picture of the Alps that he painted, and
Nice.
I have about 11 of his paintings, and they're all over the place. Imagine you could find a way. Oh, I wanted to show everybody. This
Yes,
is
thank you.
this is who Susan Marx is.
That's beautiful. It's a great picture.
Was taken about when she was 92 years old,
Wow, she looks fantastic.
didn't she? She,
Fantastic.
yeah,
Very nice. Thank you for showing that.
yeah. Well, you're most welcome, you know.
um, your dad was like, how about world renowned for a kid who, is it true he didn't even graduate second grade? Is that right?
Yeah, he did not graduate second grade. He got thrown out the window one time too many, and he just never went back to school. See, it was a different time, a different era, different all kinds of
Yeah,
things.
now you get thrown out of the window in third grade.
No, yeah, yeah. If he'd only hung on for another grade, uh, there was
I
not.
mean, but does that make his story even more amazing with a lack of formal education? And he goes on to be an unbelievable musician, a pantomime, a comedian, and obviously an incredible father and husband.
His greatest gift was his belief in himself, and as long as he didn't hurt anyone, those are that's what he lived off of. Kindness just came out of every pore.
Right.
Is as fine a human being as I've ever known in my life, and I don't say things that lightly just because he's my dad. But quite frankly, he was a great man, and I can't thank him enough. And I opened this turkey that we've been talking about by saying I was fortunate, and I am fortunate, and it's because of him and my mother that I'm fortunate to this day. I'm 87 years old, filled with great fortune, and I thank him for giving me a blessed opportunity, and even doing things like I want you to go to New York and get some street smarts. That's how he got his education that way, and he's an invaluable man for me.
Yeah, he announced his retirement. I think he told me he retired like 40 times,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, he had to go back and hear the cheers.
Yeah, I get it. It's a drug.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a good drug, though. It's a nice thing because people care and they want to see it. But were you there when he announced? I guess it was his actual final retirement on TV in 1963.
No, it was at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium. Uh, Alan Sherman brought him into the auditorium to do his final act, and they became very close friends. Alan, I'd met Alan when I had done a show with Alan, and this was at the time of My Son the Folk Singer and all that. And Alan had become very popular, and so Dad was supposed to do the last half of the show, and so he brings Dad out, and Dad all of a sudden launches into, "For 13 long years, I have toiled and labored for your happiness." And the people were in shock to hear him say anything. And even Alan didn't know. And it turns out he started with his bar mitzvah speech for 13 long years. And the audience first gasped, and then they applauded like mad. And I think they applauded for at least three minutes, at least 3 minutes. That's a very, very long time. If you just sit in one place for 3 minutes, long time. And Dad said, if I knew that the speaking thing was so easy, I would have gotten into it a lot sooner. But I stuck it with the mime stuff, you know. But he was constantly, that was the very last time. And I was in the wings, as I usually was. In fact, the last 12 years of his existence, I was in the wings for him for everything.
That would have been a good title for your book, In the Wings of Harpo.
Yeah. I Love Lucy, when he did that wonderful show with her. I was there.
Can I play just a minute of that? I Take Me Out to the Ball Game on I Love Lucy, even though you can't hear it.
I've heard it. You
No, I
can,
know you've heard it a few times. You arranged it, right?
yes, I did, but I can hear it. I still hear it.
You hear it in your head while the other people hear it in their ears.
There you
Here's
go.
Harpo on I Love Lucy, 1955. Spectacular. And I love the finish. Almost finished. And the applause at the end. How proud was Bill Marx to watch that take place on I Love Lucy, which was basically like going to the president's house in those days.
Uh, I had to produce. I had to do it right, or I would shame my parents. So I did
Yeah,
it.
you did it right, but was there a big hug when that show was over?
What is interesting about that show, maybe not to everybody, but certainly to a couple of people, that show, of course, that show featured the mirror scene.
Oh,
with Dad and Lucy, and which had been done in Duck Soup years and years ago, over 20 years prior. Well, what happened is in order to do that mirror scene, uh, Lucy played the part of Dad, and Dad played the part of Groucho. And, and he had never done that before, and they had to do extensive research, rehearsal, sometimes rehassle, I guess. But
I got the picture for you here.
yeah, there you go, there you go. And Dad spent a lot of time rehearsing Lucy. She was just a magnificent, magnificent Harpo.
That's great. That's great. I bet he walked out of there saying that's one of the best things I've done in a long time.
I was only 17 or 18 years old.
Well, I'm talking about your dad, what he said, not you.
I don't know. I don't know what he said. All I
Yeah.
know, uh, he called me up and said, "Are you ready for our next gig?" That's all.
That's right. Just keep them rolling, baby.
Yeah, keep them coming. Yeah.
That's so great.
Uh,
What do you remember about the Gookie? That's the face he makes.
well,
What's the origin of that? Is there an official origin?
I would recommend anybody that's really that interested about the Gookie or almost anything else about Dad is to read Harpo Speaks.
Yeah.
And he'll explain how the Gookie came about much, much more eloquently than I can here. Just suffice to say that there was a guy who used to roll cigars in the window of his cigar shop. And he would roll them, and while he was rolling them, his face started to contort into what became a gookie.
Yeah.
That's how Dad originally, and I think the cigar store's owner's name was Mr. Gookie, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. I love that. But I love when he does it though with your mother. That's so great.
Uh,
That's
wonderful.
such a great shot.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it's as good as it gets. I'm going to show the picture of your books. All three of the Marxes, the Harpo family. There they are. Speaking of Harpo, son of Harpo speaks, and now we got another one coming out for Zeppo soon. It's nonstop, and you know it's going to be keep coming long after we're all gone. You know that.
Well, thank you so much for putting those up. It's a great trilogy if you want to learn something about Harpo Marx or Arthur Harpo Marx. Um, I appreciate your showing that. And I have had a remarkable time with you.
Thank
We
you.
have a lot more in common that we haven't even talked about yet. And maybe next time, I hope.
I would
Uh,
love to have it next time. That would be so wonderful. And you know what? All I know is that anybody named Billo is good enough for me. What can I tell you? All
well,
right, you've been great, Bill. Fantastic stuff. I could hear stories about the Marx Brothers all day long, but the fact that you are still here to tell us and you got that memory bank going, baby, don't stop, okay?
okay, I promise. Yes, doctor.
I'm here to help. And remember, play more piano. It's good for the brain. It really is.
Got to get back to it. I really do.
Okay, and I'm getting my little my electric piece that if I learn how to play America the Beautiful again, at least I'm gonna have to bring it down to the desert and maybe we'll play a few minutes of piano together.
We'll
But
do it.
I don't know how to do that with the finger.
That's called a glissando. And on the
With the finger, the Chico finger.
the Chico is shooting the keys.
It's
Yeah,
shooting the keys, exactly. Do you do that? Did you learn how to imitate that? I assume you had to do that in your shows, right?
I did a little of it, but I couldn't do it like him. And it 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 requires a great deal of of attention to learn how to do it over the years.
Right.
He was so graceful.
I'm sure he was. You know, I got to do one more thing before we leave because it's one of my segments, and I told you about this. Let's eat. Your favorite food. I got to know what your favorite food was and what you remember your dad and your mom loved the most,
Uh,
besides
okay.
your pet peeves.
Uh, well, let me get me out of the way. Avocado is my favorite food.
Really?
Um,
How about a
let's.
hot pastrami sandwich right there? Does that look good?
That looks pretty good. I got to tell you, Rami. Uh,
What about your dad? Did he have a favorite restaurant or besides maybe the Brown Derby, which was probably everybody's favorite in those days?
yeah, he loved the Brown Derby, and there were several places that he loved Don the Beachcomber,
Okay.
and a place that is no longer in existence. It was called the Aware Inn.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Very popular on Holloway and Sunset Boulevard. For those of you who are looking for it, you sure won't find it.
Okay.
And when he went to Hillcrest for lunch, all he would order, they gave you a pencil and a piece of paper, and you write down what you want. And he would write almost every day, Peezafsh, piece of fish.
That's beautiful. I love it. I absolutely love it. You know, there's something about food that actually tells you so much about a person. You know, like what they like to eat and how often they eat it and their diet. Your diet makes the person. So, in what way has your diet made you, Bill?
I don't know. I like. Uh, there are very few foods that I don't like, and most of them are not one of them.
I'm going to write that down, and I have no idea what I'm writing down. I want you to know that.
Am I still have uh, very, very good vittal signs. Good
Fiddle.
vitals.
Got it. That's beautiful. Did you ever go to Nate and Al's in the old days? You had to.
Did I ever have what?
Did you go to Nate and Al's in the old days with the
Oh,
family?
oh yeah, sure. Nate Nels.
Sure.
Of course,
See, there's a lox and the bagel, cream cheese, and capers right there for you.
yep. That was Groucho's haunt for lunch, always.
That's great. All right, we're done. I've kept you too long. You're going to end up billing me by the hour. So I want to.
Thank you for all you have done for so many. Uh, uh, your book, uh, Touching Greatness, I think is the name of it.
That is correct.
I have to tell you, it's such a joy. You can pick it up to any page you want, and you'll find an interesting 3 or 4 things you never knew. And you've had a remarkable life yourself. And I hope one day somebody can interview you and learn more about what a fortunate life you've had as well.
Thank you. I've done too many of those interviews when my book came out, but I do appreciate that very, very much. And you know what? I'm not a Marx brother, but can I be a Marx cousin?
You sure can.
You talked me into it. I appreciate it. I'm in the family, baby. Thanks again, Billo. You're the best. And we will talk shortly. You hang on. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Thanks for watching. You got a lot of people who are waiting for this show, Bill, and I'm sure they enjoyed every second of it. Bill Marx, the son of Harpo. Look at that guy. Is he great? Good night, everybody.